of the two. So
Yeah,
you might
mine
as
should
well.
be pretty quick.
Yours is possibly the longer of the two, but I can definitely see you guys branching off and doing your own shit. Because that's what usually happens. So I guess we'll find out.
We like consistency.
Yes.
New story, you start out in jail. What?
Fuck. Alright. We'll start with Lobe then. So, let's begin our story by actually entering the grand city of Azu on Deal, which you guys have really only heard by word of mouth. But now you're actually here, and Eris has definitely been hyping up this place as like this super cool monument to like these two races working together to achieve one goal. And well, whether you actually believe that or not, the sites themselves are still pretty impressive. You enter through this large gateway, mostly made of wood, but you can see some of metalworking interwoven here and there. And it's actually at this point where you guys have to get out of the cart because the actual size of Florence would shatter this fence barrier thing. So Winslow's gonna have to work with that little problem. But you guys are escorted sort of through the one or two checkpoints through the gate, and you get into the inner city itself. And I'm sure for a lot of you, actually, this is probably a big old culture shock. The pathway itself is huge. Dirt bound, but huge. There is a lot of walking space here, and that's probably a good thing because a lot of people are either like riding these one-man carts with a lot of like exotic animals you guys have only seen sort of bypassing when you were making your way through the Soul Glass savannas. And it's a very busy sort of hustle and bustle environment. You can see that many of the buildings have sort of been stacked up onto each other as if the village that it originally was just expanded upon. There's a lot of plankways and like strings hung out with laundry and other sort of cloth-like materials. Like, this is a very, very busy city for being pretty much out in the middle of nowhere. And everywhere you look, as you've come to expect, everyone is either an orc or a Goliath. And it's a curious thing because all of them range, like I said previous, about 6 to 8 feet. So there is not a single person here that you guys sort of dwarf over anymore. And I mostly shoot that to Lobe and Lannon, who are probably used to being the tallest folks in the city.
I guess Svein dwarfs under people.
Yeah, he does. That's true.
And how's Kennam faring?
Well, Kennam fares how usually.
Dawn.
Yeah, Kennam fares how Kennam usually fares. But as you make your way, again, like, you're at the entrance of the city, and Ears, who at this point has changed out of the shredded remains of her robe, she is now a little more dressed for the weather. She's got, like, a pair of shorts on, a linen shirt. She's wearing a cloak, and actually the hood is pulled up, and she says, okay, so by my count, we hopefully should not be in the city for more than a day or two. Depending on how well Winslow can convince someone to fix our cart. So I guess if you guys want to meet at the end of the day back here, and just so you know, end of the day means when the sun is not in the sky anymore. I guess we'll reconvene then. Just so I know though, where are you guys heading in case I need to find you?
I'll be hopping around the taverns, checking out the sights, tasting the foods.
Alright, I guess I really shouldn't have asked you, huh, Lobe?
Why?
You're a very simple man. You know, you know what you want. And now I know what you want, so I usually do.
Oh, is this for my birthday present?
No, okay. Svein, what are you doing? Let's just move past this.
Well, I'll be looking for some information, so I'll see if I can't find a good library, and who knows, might take a trip to the blacksmith.
What? Information is rather vague. What are you looking for?
Well, just
Okay, see, you stretched out that well, and now I'm suspicious. So I'm just gonna turn my attention over here to Lannon and Kennam, and she like marches up to you too and pulls down on your shirts, and she's like, "What are you idiots doing?"
Well,
Am I
roll
seriously?
persuasion.
Yeah, am I seriously gonna have to ground you to the card?
no, we're Oh yeah, you actually might know something about this. So where did you get that mimichrome?
Oh, the jar? The jar that came out of my bag?
Yeah,
Ha! I have no idea.
I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I guess this is a better time to explain it than anything. And she pulls on her bag, which at this point the strap has been sewn back together, albeit slightly poorly, but functioning. And she says, "Well, I don't know what comes out of this bag. That's sort of its gimmick. I just cross my fingers and hope it'll give me what I need. And in this particular instance, it did. I mean, I recognize what mimichrome is, but that's pretty much where it stops.
Cool. What else is in there?
Nothing for you, Svein." She kind of like pulls the bag back to her side.
So what is mimichrome?
Well, like I said, I just know what you guys saw. It's a sort of metal magic alloy that shapes its weapon appearance based on what the user wants. A lot of big
And
words.
that's what we're doing today.
Okay, well, let's not go crazy with that because, like I said, it's sort of a rare alloy, and I don't know much about it. So let's make sure no one loses that, okay? Okay.
That sounds like a plan.
Okay.
Sure, why not?
Okay. Well, if any of you need me, I will be probably in the center of the city. I have a lot to talk about with the leader, I guess. And she actually like makes a face and looks at all four of you as if to say, "What the fuck, guys? I was kind of hoping someone would come with me."
Take Winslow, you're still worried about him.
But after like a moment of silence, she just shakes her head and she says, "Oh, okay. Well, you know where I am. I know where you are. Y'all have fun in the city." And she starts off into the busy, well, not a streetway, but busy streetway that is Zoo on Deal.
Goodbye, ears.
Goodbye, Spain. But she actually does look kind of happy you said goodbye. Because apparently everyone else is a dick and won't say goodbye to her.
Yeah, I was gonna wave.
Nope, too late now.
Lobe's already gone.
Yeah, I'll say Lobe's gone.
That is far down the road. Head towards the box.
Off to the magic shop.
Okay, so we will pan the camera over to Lobe first. We're gonna... Hi, Lobe. So this is going to be interesting because, like I said, this particular interlude includes all four of us. It's 5 including me, but, I don't really count. So we're going to... I'm actually going to set a timer so we don't go too crazy over. But yeah, it'll be the same deal as last time. We'll dedicate about 20 or so minutes to each of you. You have told me previous kind of what you want to do. Lobe, in your case, you've kind of already told us multiple times what you want to do. So let's start off with Lobe. So, Lobe, you, as you said, are looking for a tavern. Now, this city is pretty big, and you have never been here before. So, from the entrance, yes. So, from the entrance, what direction do you want to start wandering in?
Yes.
Well, what do I see to my left and what do I see to my right?
Fair point. Okay, so off to the left of the path, you see sort of a more rural area. Some of the houses don't look quite as big or quite as patchworked together I guess you could say. There's definitely more foot traffic here, more people just walking around, maybe with their families, maybe with their kids. And the shops, or at least what shops you could see, are much smaller in quantity than maybe some of the bigger ones farther down the road. Off to your right is quite a sight, actually. You're blinded for a second there because strung up on various strings and wires, there's a lot of glass work, and this is definitely where a majority of the foot traffic from the entrance of the city is headed. There's a lot of pre-set up stalls. You can hear a bunch of like orcs and Goliaths shouting out various specials or deals. And like I said, ahead of you, just kind of more foot traffic, more crowds, more carts, more exotic zoo animals running this way and that.
Well, that sounds like the direction I want to go.
You're gonna go straight to the massacre. Like, clarifying, yes, you are going straight.
Yep.
Okay. So you make your way straight, and like I said, there are a lot of people traveling vis-a-vis carts. You pass by a wide number of very strange animals. Like, there's a couple of carts that are being pulled by what you can only assume are striped horses. There's one cart that is being pulled by a rather big, sort of a water buffalo looking thing, and you even see a much shorter, smaller, kind of rickshaw looking cart being pulled by this very long-necked creature, which, to your knowledge, yours had called a giraffe, but you could be remembering that wrong, who knows. And you kind of make your way through this busy intersection of sorts, and you see to your right and your left a lot of buildings set up for these particular travelers who are either passing through or stopping for the night. You see that there are a lot of stables, each built in different sizes and shapes to accommodate all these strange animals. And you do eventually come across your first tavern.
Well, then I head on in.
All right. So you open the door to a fairly large tavern. Definitely not the largest in Ozuandil, but it's a fairly notable size. The name itself is probably lost to you because I don't think Lobe knows Orcish or Goliath, whatever they speak. Yeah, that's what I thought. So the name is lost upon you. You have no idea what this tavern is called, but it has a picture of what looks like that same stripy horse. And you head on inside, and it's fairly busy. You can definitely see a lot of travelers stop here to sort of rest and recuperate. And it's not just orcs or Goliath. You actually see a fair handful of halflings. They're sort of off, taking up some of the tables off in the corners and drinking rather heavily, and seem to be having a good time. But you can definitely sort of find some table here that will accommodate your needs.
Well, I want to join the ones that are drinking heavily.
Okay. So you then immediately make your way over to the halflings. At this point, it has become a fairly common sight to you, thanks to the presence of Kennam. A lot of them are actually dressed a lot like him. You sort of see them in colorful garb, fairly comfortable traveling clothing, and each and every one of them has a different kind of animal mask. Not necessarily over their face, but it may be tied off to their shoulders or around their waist or to the side of their heads. And there's quite a number of different masks. You see, like, some of them look like fish, some of them look like birds, some of them look like big cats or bears, and a couple of these halflings, as you get closer, sort of even represent those masks a bit. Like, you see some of them have these gnarled claws, and some of them have oddly shaped ears. And how do you make yourself present to this caravan as you get closer?
Hello, friends! To what great occasion are we drinking?
And you actually do get a rowdy hello from every single one of those halflings. Like, they all in unison go, hi! And, one of the halfling men stands up and he goes to shake your hand, which probably judging,
I will
yeah,
proceed to shake.
but judging how big his hand is, it's sort of dwarfs in comparison a bit. But he gives a verb shake. He's like, "Oh, celebrating! Isn't it good enough just to be alive, friend?"
That is a wonderful occasion. Let us drink.
And you hear another hearty cheer, and some of the halflings scoot across so you can take a seat. And the halfling that greeted you earlier says, "So what can we call you, new friend?"
You may call me Lobe, and to what pleasure do I have to address all you?
There's like this eruption of different names and introductions, and the halfling male sort of holds up a hand, and he says, "Well, why don't we start with me, friend? You can call me Ian."
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you, Ian.
And again, he like reaches out to your hand, and he shakes it furiously. And he says, "There's quite a number of us here, but so all the names aren't necessary, but yeah, nice to meet you, Lobe. What brings you to Azu-on-Deal?"
Well, first I fought a big ooze, but that was after I didn't get a good dinner. But then I had lunch, which was great, and here I am.
You that actually stirs about quite the reaction when you say, fought a big ooze and just sort of skate right past that. And you actually hear a couple of the halflings go, "What? What? No, hold on, you gotta back it up a second there." And the other one's like, "Yeah, like, what's this about a big ooze?" And
Well, give me the first drink, and I'll tell you all about it.
and Ian laughs and he says, "That sounds like a plan to me." And he gestures to the bartender who comes over and fills out orders. It looks like, at least to you, Lobe, the special usually consists of some sort of beer or liquor. They don't seem to really have any fruitier drinks that you are used to, or at least you've come across. I mean, I'm like racking my brain thinking of what kind of liquors we've had, and it's like, it's been whiskey and wine so far, so why not? So they, the halflings, your friend Ian, they quickly kind of rapid fire off a bunch of these orders. Again, sort of in that orcish language that you don't really understand. But whatever they said, the bartender disappears for a bit, and he comes back with this giant tankard of kind of greenish, frothy liquid. And Ian slides you a cup, and he says, "To a great story!" And he holds your cup over to you.
I take it, and I cheers with them, and I down it.
Okay. It's fairly strong. Again, kind of tastes like some sort of beer mixture. A little earthy. Kind of tastes like you're chewing on grass a bit. So not the most flavorful drink, but you start to feel a little buzz in the back of your head. So it does have alcohol, so that's good. And
Excellent.
Ian takes a swig of his too, and everyone else takes a swig, and it's just this big old cheerful atmosphere. And Ian leans in close. It's like, "All right, so we got you your drink. Now you have to tell us, what about this giant ooze that you fought?" And you see a couple of the other halflings lean in, interested to hear the story.
Well, let me start from the beginning. It all started back at this town. You see, we met this wonderful lady named Marigold, I believe was her name, and she needed our help to get to the town ahead of us, where the Phoenix King lived.
And you hear a couple of the halflings go, "Ooh, the Phoenix King? Like, wow, I've never even seen him before." And Ian kind of like waves his hand as if they shh, shh, shh. And he looks over to you, Lobe, and he says, "No, please, go on."
You know, now that I think about it, I don't think I ever met the Phoenix King. I hope we got him what we needed. Anyway, so we head into town. Well, we head out of town first, and we decided to make a shortcut through this ashen grove. And that's where things got a little crazy.
And again, you sort of hear the halflings like whisper among themselves, like, "Oh, the Ashen Groves, like, I've been there before. I don't want to go back." And again, Ian kind of waves his hand as if to say, "Stop interrupting him."
So as we start to make our way through the grove, we hear a rustling in the bushes. So I decide, well, I'll go see what it is. And there you have it. It was a Kevin.
One of the halflings actually perk up and he's like, "What? I don't think I was in the Ashy Grove at that point." And then Ian says, "Kevin, he's not talking about you. Sit down." And he says, I'm sorry, Lobe.
Are you a Kevin as well?
I mean, my name's Kevin. And again, Ian's like, "Kevin, just..." And he looks at you, Lobe, and he says, sorry, we're a little eager to the gun. Why don't you fast forward a bit to this ooze? Was that a recent thing?"
Well, hold on. Now, every good story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. We're only at the beginning. Don't rush.
He holds up his hand. He's like, fair point, fair point. And you continue to, I guess, just recap the entirety of your tale, all while...
Poorly.
Yeah, poorly. But you do. And as you talk, Ian makes sure that you are properly taken care of. Once you finish your tankard, another tankard is waiting for you. Same frothy green, sort of grass-tasting booze. But, I mean, it works for your purposes. And you finally, after maybe 10 or so minutes, get to the part with the great ooze. And it is at this point that all the halflings, like, up until now, all the halflings sort of, like, interrupt you every so often to make a quip or ask you a question. But as soon as you sort of get into your situation with the ooze, they just all fall dead silent. Like, they are intently listening to your story. And as you finish it up, one of the halflings starts to clap, and the rest of them follow suit, and you got, like, this whole table suddenly, like, shouting and cheering your name. And Ian is laughing. He's like, "I have to admit, Lobe, that is the craziest story I have heard in quite a while."
Well, thank you.
And he takes a drink, and he says, "So, no kidding, this gray ooze thing was making plant life out of nothing?"
I think so. Either that or it was Vinny.
And everyone, like, nods and nods their heads, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Vinny, like, yeah, he was crushed at the story." And Ian says, "It's just, well, that part's got me particularly interested. I don't know if you're familiar with, well, I mean, not to make assumptions, but you seem to be a man of the faith, Lobe. Is that a safe assumption?"
I always have faith.
"Well, faith in a particular god or goddess."
Yes.
"Well, then I don't know if you've ever heard of a story called The Wooden Cradle, by chance?"
I don't believe so, but that's gonna need another drink.
Fair enough. And he gestures to the bartender again, who goes off to get you a drink. And Ian leans in, he's like, "Well, I guess it's a story sort of more passed around to halflings than anyone else, but the basics of the tale go that 3 siblings were the creators of Gaia, with the eldest making all of the landscapes and the weather and the sky and the sea, the youngest of the siblings creating the animals and the plants and everything that breathes, and the middle child kind of stealing those aspects to create us. We are rather proud of that story, if you couldn't tell." And he kind of points to his mask, which is this collection of white feathers, and it kind of looks like a beak. And he says, "We're actually rather huge fans of that story. We like to think the youngest may have played a good part in the creation of halflings." And he kind of smiles at this. And he takes a sip of his drink, and he says, "But, I mean, you have to understand, like, more often than not, we just like to represent the idea, but this, having an entire creature manipulate plant life, like, I don't know about you, but that's otherworldly."
It is pretty crazy, but it's probably not the craziest thing I'm gonna see yet.
Judging by your story, I would think not. And you actually watch as he pulls out what seems to be a whistle of sorts and a roll of paper, and he says, "This is going to sound a little weird, but if you, in your journeys, ever find anything that strange or bizarre again, I would absolutely love to hear about it. We have a pigeon system that we work on. All you have to do is blow this whistle, and one of our pigeons will come and find you. I would
Well,
love
isn't that nifty?
it. Yes. I'm quite proud of our caravan for working that out. But if you ever hear anything like this again, whether it's based on the youngest powers, the eldest powers, I would love to hear about it.
Okay.
And he gives you the whistle, and he gives you the paper, and he says, "But I don't mean to interrogate. We're here to have a celebration. Who wants another round?" And everyone at the table cheers.
Lobe joins in.
All right, and you proceed to drink heavily throughout the rest of the day.
That sounds like a perfect day for Lobe.
Okay, so you spend most of your day at this tavern, and eventually the caravan starts to pack up. They let you know, like, yeah, we gotta get back on the road. Can't drink forever. And as they pack up, you get visited by a group of halfling children, and they're kind of all giggling amongst themselves, and they're trying to push like one of their members forward. It looks like this small little girl whose mask sort of kind of looks like what you could guess is a beaver or something, but it's not made too well, so could also be a rat, not sure. But they push her forward, and they're all giggling, and she tugs on your rope, and she says, Mr. Lobe, we wanted to give you something.
Oh, that's very sweet of you.
And she holds out this sort of paper mache, gooey, gloopy mess of what looks like a mask. Whatever animal this is, you have no idea. Like, they seem to sort of just put a bunch of different animals together. Like, you can see sharp teeth, but there's also like feathers on the top of the head, and there's like fox ears maybe on the sides, but then there's also like bits of sparkling scales, and they hold them up, and it's like, well, we can't ask you to be part of our caravan, but we still want you to be our friend. We can be mask buddies.
Well, that sounds wonderful. And I go to put the mask, which I assume is far too small
Far
on
too
my
small.
head, kind of to the side like a little hat.
Yes. And that makes them all super duper happy, and they all like run off back to their parents, shrieking and giggling excitedly, and you see the parents look up at you and nod thank you. And before they head off, Ian comes back over to you, gives you a firm handshake, and he says, "I'm glad we met you, Lobe. That's gonna be a fun story to tell the other caravans when we run into them."
I was glad to be a part of this day with you.
As am I. And remember, if you hear anything weird like that, and he sort of gestures to the whistle in the paper again, which, well, I guess you gesture to the whistle, which I assume you put around your neck or something. Sure. And with one more farewell, you watch as this caravan saddles up and sets off down the road to who knows where next. So let's get started then right into our next interlude. Lannon, Svein, and Kennam.
Ooh, yeah.
Woo!
Oh my god. Okay. So we sort of discussed what you guys wanted to do, but I think you have now had time to properly plan an attack strategy of sorts.
We literally haven't spoken a word since Lobe's thing started.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll rewind a little bit. We are back at the front of Azu on Deal. Lobe at this point has sort of run off. Ears has run off to do her own thing. And you guys are left at the gate's entrance.
Huh. I guess now would be a good time to, like,
Split Mimichrome up?
I really don't want to split Mimichrome.
Okay, if we don't split it, we're not going to know how, well, I at least need to be able to have it to ask people. You're going to have to be having to ask people. And Svein's probably going to need it to do some figure out what researching.
That's right. It would be nice to have a sample. But just do it very, very carefully.
You know,
Right.
baby cuts.
Yes.
I don't think we actually need to cut since it's liquid.
Could we, like, Could I, like, ask it to split
Yeah.
apart?
Can't we just will it to split?
You can try that.
What is that, D20?
Well, I mean, you can literally just pull it out and see if it'll do it for you.
Okay.
Will it to split into 3?
Yeah, pretty much.
Alright, we'll to split.
Okay, so you pull out the jar, and do you keep it in the jar, or are you like dumping up the contents and saying, "Split apart into 3"?
No,
You like put it on a plate or something to split apart into 3?
Are there plates?
Did you bring out plates? You guys, okay, listen. You guys are having this conversation in the middle of like the city. So like, if you want to go back to Florence and get some plates or something.
Wait. I have a bottle of ink as well.
What?
I'd ask
I can
why, but
Huh? It's my scholars pack.
that's fair.
So, I'm going to dump out my ink and be like, alright, here's 2. Svein, what you got?
Well, let's see. I have a flask of oil. I suppose I could dump out the oil.
We can always get more oil.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just dump this out over here. Nobody set that on fire.
Yeah.
I cast Firebolt immediately.
Okay.
No!
No. Okay.
Kevin, dinner's ready.
So you now both have empty glasses, vials, jars, whatever. You have something that you can contain the Mimichrome in. And
Yep.
so Lannon, you pull out your jar with the Mimichrome in it. And are you just gonna like kind of pour out a little bit now, I guess?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess pour a little in each of the other flasks.
All right. And it doesn't seem to resist. It just flows out like it was liquid. And you all now have a third of the original Mimichrome, which to say is not a lot. Like maybe it comes up less than a centimeter on your bottles, respectively. But you have it now, so it's good.
Alright, cool.
All right. So I will try to head off to the library.
Okay.
I'm gonna head to like a magic shop, someone who deals in magic items.
Okay. So we got.
And I'm off to the nearest blacksmith.
All right. So we got library, magic shop, and blacksmith. Then why don't we follow? Actually, let me find my dice. I haven't rolled
There's
any
no
dice.
1D crew.
There's, you know what there is though? There's.
Oh, yeah, D6.
I haven't rolled dice all day either. I want to roll some dice. Ooh. All right. So I set it up as Svein is 1 or 2, Kennam is 3 and 4, and Lannon is 5 and 6. I rolled a 4, so Kennam, let's follow you.
Alright, well, gonna go looking for the any magical shop, like any shop that works in magic items.
Okay, so the directions you have to choose are straight ahead, to your left or to your right. I described a bit what they look like in Lobe's interlude, but just for a quick recap, to the left looks like a rural in neighborhood of sorts. Straight ahead of you looks like a busy sort of intersection of carts and travelers, and then off to your right is that marketplace with the glass hanging above in strings.
I'm gonna cut the shit, grab the nearest orc, because I do speak orcish, and go, excuse me, sir. Where's the nearest where's the nearest shop full of magic items?
And the orc guard points you off to the right with that glass and marketplace. He's like, well, that would be a good direction to start, sir. I would head that way.
Okay. Off I go.
All right. So you make your way down Azu on Deal's Market District, and holy baloney, this is quite a market district. You pass under quite a number of strings and wires, like I said before, just dangling with these glass, what you assume is glass blown pieces. Some of them are just sort of shards of multicolored glass. Some of them are actually shaped into these very vague sort of images. You can't quite figure it out because they're too high above you. But then there's the stalls themselves selling quite a number of exotic goods, some of which appear to be cloth or clothing or traveling gear. You see one of the stalls with a Goliath, and he has this beautiful display of, again, these glass-blown figurines. And right next to him is actually another glass stall, but instead of figurines, they sort of look more like trinkets and wands. And the rest of the stalls sort of follow the same sort of pattern. Either it's goods, food, but more often than not, you see that a lot of these stalls are selling something that's made of glass.
I'm gonna walk up to the guy who's selling trinkets, and first I'm gonna ask in common, do you speak common?
The Goliath looks up at you, and he sort of like makes that motion with his hand that's like, eh.
I'm gonna switch to Orcish and go, is this better?
He nods and says, "Oh, yes, that's much easier. Can I help you, sir?"
Yes. Would this be like a magical items vendor?
At that, he kind of puffs up his chest and pride says, "Why, yes, you have quite the eye. Would you happen to possess the magical talents yourself?"
I'm gonna cast Prestidigitation on one of the hanging glass things to make it look like a fire like erupts inside of it.
Okay.
Like a little lamp thing.
Like a little lamp thing. No, I got you. Actually, a couple people walking by see this display and they all like, "Ooh!" And you see like a couple of them clap because I thought this was a show. And the Goliath laughs and he says, "Well, don't have to ask me twice. What is your name, magical man?"
My name is Kennam. Kennam Tosscobble. May I ask yours?
He says, "You can just call me Shale." And he holds out a hand. A rather big hand. Kind of meaty. Definitely could crush your hand if you wanted to.
Kennam's gonna try his best to handshake. I'm sure between like it being a high stall and him being a massive man, it's a bit difficult, but I'm gonna try.
Actually, now that you mentioned the stall, in your travels, you are kind of used to things towering over you, especially when it comes to stalls. This one is actually, it's almost like it was built for somebody of your height in mind, because you can rather easily reach your hand across and shake this man's hand.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Yeah. And
yeah, okay.
And Shale sits back in what you assume is some sort of stool that he has on hand, and he gestures to his wares and he says, "So, does anything catch your eye in particular, Kennam Tosscobble?"
Actually, I'd like to, well, two things. First off, I would like to do a quick custom order. I have this flower here, and he motions to it the crystalline flower he's been keeping as like a brooch, and he's like, I usually cast spells through it, but it hasn't been working recently. I was wondering if maybe I could turn it into something else.
You see Shale's face light up when you gesture to this brooch. He's like, "That's magnificent. Do you mind if I can take a look at that?"
He gives the flower over.
And you see Shale very delicately hold it in the palm of his hand, and he fishes around in his apron and pulls out a pair of glasses, but it's like a pair of glasses that has other what is it called? It's like a magnifying sort of thing. I'm thinking of like Inspector Gadget now.
Bifocals?
Yeah, kind of like that. He like flips a couple lenses down and it zooms in on the image. I'm sure there is really a name for that. I just can't think of what it is.
I don't know what they're called.
Multi-lens spectacles. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Pulls out multi-lensed spectacles and he flips a couple of them down and he turns the flower very carefully and he says, "Gracious, did you get this made here? I've never seen the grass produce such a color. Like, this is amazing."
No, it was a gift from a friend elsewhere.
And he nods and he says, "I suppose I should have known that. You'll have to forgive me. Like, the resources we have here don't quite produce such a hue." And he hands the flower back to you. He says, "Well, what were you thinking about getting it made into?"
Well, maybe I do have this wand, but I'd rather actually make it a cane if I can. I'm starting to get I'm getting older, and I'd prefer to have something that's a bit functional.
Oh, no, say no more. I completely understand. Can I see the wand?
He hands over the elegant wand.
And he actually doesn't look too impressed with this wand. He gives it a once-over and nods and says, "Well, I did just get a shipment. Lucky me, it's the dry season, and we've got plenty of grass to burn, so I think I'll have enough glass to make something to that extent."
And the other thing I needed, I guess it's more of an analysis.
Oh?
I think you'll find this very interesting, and I just need to know more about it. And he starts to pick the little bottle of Mimichrome out, and goes, I stumbled upon this, well, it was, we got this a little recently, and I'd like to know a little more about it.
Again, Shale kind of holds out his hand and says, "Well, let's take a look then."
Yeah, he hands it over.
Okay. I was like, oh shit, is he hesitating now? No. Okay, so he looks the bottle over, kind of gives it a shake, nods, flips a couple lenses and says, "Well, what did you call this? A substance?"
Mimichrome.
He frowns and says, I've never heard of something like this before. Can I ask what exactly it does? Like, what makes this so special?"
Well, I've seen it take different shapes and harden into different weapons, based on what I've seen its use being. I'd like to know what else I could do with it, or maybe how to make more.
And he shakes his head and says, "Sorry, I don't think I can help with this one. Perhaps if you found an alchemist, but as you can see, I'm sort of a one-tool trade man," and Shale gestures again to the glass behind him.
Oh, well. Well, so I guess how much is the cane gonna cost?
Well, a funny story there. We really have no need for... Oh, goodness. What is the currency now? What are you guys trading around?
Gold?
Yeah. Here in Azu-on-Dio, we don't really need gold. Mostly we look for objects of interest, or perhaps you can work for your cane if you have the time.
Yeah, I guess. How about I drum up some business?
He nods and he says, "That would be great."
Alright. I guess with that, he's gonna turn right around, and I'm just gonna fire off all my spells. So, here we go.
Let's burn this bitch to the ground!
I have 3 level 1 spells, and then I'm prestidigitationing everything I find. Like, all of the hanging lights, they are going up and, like, they're shooting sparks. They have flames inside of them. They are glowing. It is going wonderful. I am shooting off color sprays left and right.
Hopefully not at people.
not at people, into the sky.
Okay.
Clearly, but color sprays left and right. I've got a chromatic orb or two flying into the air, like crashing into each other, like fire and ice to make ice crystals.
Oh my god.
And with all of this, I'm going to finish it off with a new spell I have. With the two new level 3 spells I have, Wall of Water to like shoot columns of water into the air for people, make it rain, and Melf's minute meteors to fire like firestones into the air and crash into each other.
I'm sorry, what was that last one?
Melf's minute meteors. It creates six small meteorites to go where I wish.
Oh my god. That's amazing. Okay, so you basically put on a one-man band show. Holy shit. Yeah, roll me performance, I guess, and definitely do it with advantage.
Okay.
Holy balls.
Okay, first one was 3. Not good, not great. And I got an 18.
Yeah. So
18 plus my performance is 21.
Woo, doggy. Okay. Hold on. Am I echoing to anyone else?
Yes.
Okay, what's going on there?
Try now.
Hello, hello. Okay, that's better. Thank you.
That's good.
Okay, so you put on this crazy display. Like literally, it was a second after Shale agreed to have your services, and you're just like, "Kay," and just this entire show exploded out from your fingertips. I'm sure though. You sort of pace yourself through all this because if you did it all at once, then you have nothing for the remainder of the day.
Yeah, no, I'm pacing myself.
Okay.
It's definitely starting with the walls of water and the prestidigitations.
Yeah, no, okay, that's great. I love this. Okay, so you pretty much put on a show all day for Shale's stall, and everybody who passes by is just so blown away by this display. Like you have a couple people that are like, "Ah, fire!" You know, freaking out a little bit, but sort of people who are actually native to the Soul Glass Savannas, or people who like live in Ozymandias, like, "Oh no, this is just a show. Like this is great." And you guys get a lot of foot traffic as you put on this show, like so much so that Shale almost can't keep up with the number of customers he gets. Like it's kind of a madhouse, and it persists like this for quite a few hours. It's well into probably the twilight at this point when the business starts to drum down a bit, and the only reason it does that is because Shale is literally out of stock.
Yes.
And he, as like the last couple of patrons walk away from the booth, he just slowly claps his hands and he says, "That is the best like sign of showmanship I have seen in quite a while. You really are a magic man, aren't you, Kennam Tosskopple?"
Kennam's gonna like hit the ground with his arms outstretched, going, "Ah."
I guess I imagine you'd be quite tired. Would you like something to drink?
Yes, please.
And Shale invites you to the back of the stall, which it's what you expect. You know, he's got a couple of boxes and crates off to the side that were at one point filled with various glass trinkets. Now super empty. There's just nothing behind the stall anymore. Except off sort of to the back, you do see that there is what seems to be a bale of cut grass, like cut savanna grass. And he pulls out one of the stools from out underneath the table, and he starts to whip up some sort of drink for you in a cup he keeps handy.
Awesome.
Okay. And it takes him a couple seconds to mix the drink together. And he says, "Really, though, that was quite amazing. How long have you been practicing magic?"
That is an interesting question. Are you asking how long I've been practicing or how long I've been good?
Well, I guess you've got me there, but there's always something to improve, isn't there?
Yeah, a little bit. Let's see. Oh, what is it now? It's been about 50 years? I want to say it's about 50 years.
He whistles. That's quite a big number to him. He actually vocalizes it. He says, that's, whew, I'd be lucky if I even hit my 40s. Good gracious. But I guess our lifespans are a little different.
He's just gonna like motion for just
And
a little.
a little. He looks like, so he's finished, bleh. He finishes shaking up this drink, and he looks like he's about to put in this weird powdery substance, but he stops and he says, oh, I guess I should ask. Do you drink alcohol?
On rare occasion.
Is this one of those rare occasions?
I could go for a drink today.
He smiles and he dumps the entire packet into the cup. And at the minute he does that, there's like this chain reaction, and you see this green frothy mess bubble up and over the edge. And he holds the cup out to you and he says, here you go, Azu on Deal's specialty.
Thank you. And he like downs it.
Well, like I said before with Lobe, it's not super flavorful, just kind of tastes like grass. But you feel those fuzzies in the back of your head, so it must be working.
Awesome.
And he actually starts making himself a cup. And he stops and he says, as much as I would like to drink with you, Kennam Toss Couple, I probably should at least fabricate a little more glass just before the end of the day.
Do what you do, man. I'm gonna be right here for a while.
He nods and he gets up and makes his way to the bundle of savanna grass. And you watch as he lays out some of it like across the stall's table. And he pulls over this small little device that kind of looks like a cauldron, but if you sort of like flipped it upside down, and it has this kind of flammable looking powder on top. And he does a quick chant under his breath and snaps his fingers, and the powder lights on fire. And you watch him pick up one of these savanna grass blades and very carefully run it underneath the flame. And as he pulls it out of that flame, it turns into this swirling point of glass. Like very sharp, very pointy, but the same sort of glass that you saw on display all day. And he carefully puts it down in a basket next to him, and then he grabs a couple more pieces and he repeats the process over and over again.
That's a pretty cool magic you got there, my dude.
He laughs and he says, oh, this is just a spark spell. It's nothing impressive.
You're making glass out of grass. That is pretty cool.
Oh, right. I guess have you ever visited Azu on Deal?
It certainly has been a very long time since I've gone anywhere near this area.
He nods and he says, no, this is just what the grass does here. I mean, it's not called Soul Glass Savannah for nothing.
I'll have to keep that in mind.
He nods and says, yeah, we actually have a ceremony every year for the younger orcs and Goliaths. They have to go out and burn some of the brush and bring back high quality glass for, well, you know, folks like me. And you see him pull it carefully through the fire again. He says, but I don't know, there's something peaceful about doing it yourself. I get sort of lost in the work, you know?
I get you.
And he goes to reach for another piece of grass, and he stops, and he looks up at you, and he says, do you want to try it?
I mean, heck yeah, that sounds awesome.
And he gets up off of his stool and offers it to you, and you take a seat, and you are now in control.
So, Shale, there is one thing I do need to mention. I don't have Spark. And I don't think you'd like my method of heating things up.
Don't worry. And he snaps his fingers again, and another sort of burst of very tiny embers erupts from the bottom of this weird cauldron pot thing. And he says, yeah, so just run it through the top of the flame. Try not to stick it too close, though, or you get scorched glass. And it's not exactly the prettiest looking material, but I mean, for first timer, I won't be mad if you scorch my glass.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna try and do it.
Okay, roll me a 1d20, and let's make this dexterity. Let's see how nimble the fingers can be.
Just general dexterity?
Yeah, just general dexterity.
Whew. I rolled a 2 plus 1, that is 3.
Okay, so you take a blade of grass and you're like very carefully trying to mimic what Shale did, like draw the top of it carefully across the flames in a graceful and fluid motion. But apparently doing that is way harder than it looks because you pull this grass apart and you must have ripped it too quick because the bottom half of the grass catches on fire and it starts to shoot up the grass stalk, and Shale's like, and he quickly snaps his fingers again and the fire goes out. But yeah, you have like this blackened point of glass sort of swirled in with smoke and amber. Or not amber, embers. There we go. Smoke and embers.
So on a whim, I'm gonna pull Mimichrome out and see what it does with that.
So the Mimichrome kind of looks at it. Well, it doesn't have eyeballs, but you know what I mean. It slides out of its jar, it kind of takes a one look over, and are you thinking about any weapon in particular?
I'm still, my mind's still kind of on that cane, because I haven't quite gotten my cane. I'm like, wonder where it is. If we're fully out of glass, is this my glass? Oh shit, is this gonna be my cane? Do I have to make my own cane?
You just go at a mile a minute. Okay, the Mimichrome is a bit, it shudders a bit, and it tries to morph along this sort of black, smoky glass spear that you have made, like a miniature stabby spear, but then it retracts and it goes back into the jar, and it doesn't move after that. And
Well, I guess I suck at this. Alright.
you hear Shale whistle, and he's like, oh, so that's what you meant by it, shapes. It does kind of have a will on its own, huh, Kennam Tosscobble?
You know you can just call me Kennam, right?
He smiles and he says, it's a Goliath thing. Out of respect. We don't exactly know each other, so it feels more polite to refer to you as in your full name.
I mean, by halfling standards, that is nowhere near my full name, but we'll keep it there.
Close it up. And he says, I mean, but to be honest, that's not a terrible first try. I have to admit, it looks pretty unique.
It kind of caught fire. I think it was pretty bad.
Well, I mean, if you'd like, I can... And he's sort of frowning, like, at first when this whole ordeal happened, he did not look super thrilled, but now he's looking it over and he's like, you know, I have to admit, it's been a while since I've actually burned grass this bad. But there is a sort of mystical quality to it. I might have to try and make a couple of pieces like this, see how they sell.
Well, I'm glad I inspired you on that.
Well, you've done quite a bit more than that for me, Fred, today. And actually, on that note, and you watch him shuffle to the back of the stall. There we go. That's what it is. To what looks like his own personal cart. And he comes back with a wrapped object, very sort of thin, cylindrical in nature, and he hands that to you and he says, well, I hope I did this justice. I had a little bit of time when I had to restock, and he puts restock in quotation marks. And he says, luckily I got this made just before my glass ran out. I think there could be a couple more improvements I could make, but if you like it as is, I suppose you could take it home now.
I mean, I'm here for the rest of most of the day, I think. Well, I think I might be here tomorrow, so I can swing by and pick it up if you want to take some more time on it.
He nods and he says, actually, if you want to leave the, well, your attempt, I think I can work it into the cave. I think it would look pretty special. One of a kind.
Sure. And he's gonna leave the blackened shard and kind of walk back to Florence.
And Shale says, "Till next time we meet, Kennam Tosscobble."
He's gonna give like a little half salute and go, "Till next time, Shale." And he's kind of half drunkenly walk back.
Oh yeah, you're like super smashed. I forgot about that. A little bit. Cool beans. So that will end Kennam's then. You can let me know what the final result of that cane is, aesthetically what it looks like. I will give you that.
Yeah, I'll work on it.
Yeah, you'll work on it. Alright, so let's roll my dice and move my mice and see who gets to go next. Spain.
Woo!
Guess whose turn it is?
No.
Alright, so Svein, you guys at this point,
Keep in mind we still have an inspiration.
you do, haven't used it yet.
Oh, yeah.
But Svein, you have since now split from your party. Kennam went off to the right to investigate the market district, and Lannon, I think, is still just kind of deciding which way to go. But where are you gonna head off to?
I'm gonna look around to see if there's a library somewhere where I can get information.
Okay. Well, as stated previously, to your left is the more rural area of Azuandiol. Straight ahead of you seems to be more foot traffic and carts and sort of the to and go in and out of the city. And to your right, where Kennam went off to, seems to be the market district.
Gonna make a knowledge roll. See if I
Okay.
can figure out best possible place to start looking. So
Make that knowledge roll.
here we go. Let's see. That be what is that? Investigation?
Yeah. I mean, you're already in the city. You're just kind of looking for clues, trying to deduce where the best library would be.
All right, 17.
Wow, yeah, you must, like, have the scent of books on your nose all the time.
Yeah.
Well, you definitely can tell that off in the rural district there should be some sort of library. I mean, people like to recreational read, so a safe bet that there's probably a library off in that direction. The marketplace more than likely sells books. There's probably not a library off in that direction. And like I said, straight ahead is more of the road to get in and out of the city.
All right.
So more than likely, you're just going to go left.
I'm gonna go left.
Gonna go left. Okay, so you make your way, I guess literally downtown. You start your walk through the rural areas of Azuandiol. And as mentioned in the beginning, it is a fairly quiet area. Unlike the other buildings, which just seem to be stacked on, stacked on, stacked on, stacked on over the years, these seem to still be the original structures. So a lot of them are made of like animal hide or wood, and the shape itself is rather small and simplistic, but it seems to suit the inhabitants here. You see a couple of families sort of out on a walk. There's a ton of children just like running up and down the street, like to the extent that a couple of them even like just about beeline into you. But they've done this for quite a bit. They know how to dodge, and I should just mention too, like these kids that almost run into you, they're like your size. So there's nothing here. There's like nothing here. You tower over my poor dwarven baby. Yeah. And like 3 of the 4 kids sort of run off, but the last one turns around and calls back. He's like, "Sorry, mister." Well, at least that's what you think he says, unless you speak Orcish. You have no idea what this guy just said.
Let me double check, but I don't think.
I know. I thought it was just Kennam that spoke Orcish.
Nope. Yeah, I do not.
Yeah, okay, so this, like,
So
Orchid...
just give him a wave, like, that's okay.
Orchid turns around and is like, Bazooka God! Then he just takes off.
Bazootaga.
Bazooka indeed. But eventually, as you sort of wind your way around the neighborhood, you do find this very quaint looking... Well, it looks like it was a hut at some point, and whoever owns the establishment sort of took on more hut pieces, so it's like this, more of a cabin stitched out of hide, and there's a sign outside of said hide cabin, and you can't read what the sign says, but there's a picture of a book, so safe bet that's probably the library.
It's always a good idea when you see a sign and you can't read it, but there's a book to
Just look
go
at
in there
pictures.
and look for. And yeah, exactly.
Alright.
Although Svein does have the spell comprehend language.
I'm gonna make this. Actually, that's a good thing because I just realized everything in this library would probably be written in Orcish. So I'm glad you have that spell.
Yeah. Otherwise, Svein's report would be like, "Well, I found these books and they have this picture of a sun and a sword and hills."
That's about it. Okay,
Yep.
so I assume you pop that spell on now.
Yes.
Okay, so the words on the sign actually begin to shape into something comprehensible, and you are able to read the lettering, and it says the blackened hide, which either is a play on of what color their ink is, or this guy really just didn't know what to name this thing, and he's just used to seeing black hide. It really could go either way. Maybe he's clever, maybe he's not. Who's to say?
This spell doesn't translate these idioms very well. I don't understand. Well, I'll find out.
Maybe that's what it is too. I didn't think about that. Okay, so you enter into this library, and I put that in quotation marks because this is definitely not a library you have ever seen before. I assume, in Svein's experience, living in the mountains and being on the road and whatnot, a lot of libraries have consisted of, you know, like these shelves, and they have books, and there's some order to it, probably.
Mm-hmm. Sounds familiar.
Yeah, not so much here. You walk in, and it's just sort of this mess of paper and scribblings, like literally tacked to the walls is just like this endless stack of scrolls written on, again, what you assume to be just tanned animal hides. There are a couple of shelves. Some of them house books.
Svein's gonna take a second to wipe a tear from his eye.
I mean, there are shelves here. A couple of them have books, but those are few and far between. This room is roughly maybe 20 by 30 feet, so it's not exactly the biggest library you've been to, I'm sure. And you watch as a Goliath and their child walks up to this desk where you're actually not sure who's sitting at the desk because whoever it is seems to be very, 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 very short. Anyway, so, yeah, no, behind this Goliath, you can't actually make out who this librarian is. You see this child excitedly sort of bound up, and they've got this mess of papers in their hands, and they put it on the desk, and you see a pair of tiny hands take it, and you hear kind of like a stamping sound, and they push it back. And the little Goliath kid scoops up the papers, and they start running towards the door. And I need you to make a reflex save because they are so not paying attention or see you there.
Oh. Okay, here we go.
Here we go.
Let's see, 16 plus 6.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I'm good.
That's plenty. So this child nearly completely steamrolls you, but you manage to kind of get out of the way in time. And the parent is like running, trying to keep up with your kid, and they nod and they say something to you, and you think it's thank you, but again, bad Orcish.
Yeah. Oh, actually, my comprehend language lets me understand spoken language too.
Oh, really? Does it?
Yes.
Oh, it's just you can't speak it back.
Yeah, I can't speak it, so
Oh, okay.
hopefully they understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, perfect. So the mother, or the mother runs past and she says, "Oh, thank you. Sorry about that, sir. Jonathan, would you please watch where you're going?" And then she kind of leaves the tent.
Svein just nods.
And at this point now, the library is empty. It's just you and the librarian, who you now realize is a halfling.
Well, hello there.
The halfling looks up. It looks like she was maybe sorting through a couple other papers. And she looks up and she starts by saying, "Hello, how can I?" And then she sort of double takes and she says, "Whoa. Hi.
Just doing some traveling.
I would say so, yeah. I'm not crazy. You're a dwarf, right?"
Yes, I am.
"Wow. And she looks a little flustered. Like, she looks like she's trying to grab a bunch of quills and inkwells and paper. She's like, "Oh, hold on. Hang on, just a second. And she kind of flattens out this piece of paper and she dips a quill in ink. And she says, I haven't seen any of you guys here, well, ever. Wow.
We don't get around that often.
I know, that's why I say it. I just have to get your story, please. I don't know if you have any time or if I'm coming off as really weird. Oh shit, I'm coming off as really weird, aren't I? I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine. I actually have some questions. I'm looking for some information as well, so maybe we can help each other out.
Oh, yeah, that sounds good. And she kind of awkwardly pushes the paper away, realizing how jumped to the gun she was just there, and says, I should introduce myself. Right. My name is Hillary. And what is yours?
My name is Svein.
Svein. And she nods and says, even sounds Dwarven. She's quiet for a minute. She's
Yes,
thinking
it
about
would.
things.
Yes, it would.
And then she like snaps out of whatever stupor she's in. She's like, "Okay, Svein. Wow. Okay, I'm sorry. Like, you have to forgive me. Your kind are so fascinating to me. Like, look at your hands." And she kind of goes for one of your hands so she can flip it over and see the gems along your knuckles. I don't know if you'll let her do that.
Svein will go ahead.
Okay, so she does that. And she's like running her hand across the jewels. She's like, it's so cool. It's so cool. Environmental adaptation. And she looks
Yes.
she looks up at you again and she kind of pushes her head back to you. She's like, sorry. Okay, so Svein, what can I help you with?
Well, you see, I'm looking for some information on a very curious substance. I don't know if you've heard of it before, but it's called mimichrome.
Mimichrome? And like you see her whole face light up. She's like, how did you get mimichrome? Are you kidding me? Svein, holy crap. And she like grabs her chest for a second. She's like, you're gonna give me a freaking heart attack. Holy moly. Okay.
Hold on there. It's okay.
I'm sorry, like, when I settled down here in Azu on Deal, I didn't think it'd be this boring, no offense. Wow. Wowie zowie. Okay. Calm down, Hillary. It's cool. So where's the mimicrobe at? Do you have a sample with you?
Well, let me see here. You see, my friend is the one who owns it, but he might let me borrow some, but let me check here.
Svein has to remember if he actually has it on him.
Yeah.
Oh,
And he pulls it out. He's like, yes, but I only have just a little bit.
Oh, she like immediately snatches that out of your hand. She says, even just a little though. Wow.
Yes, now do be careful with it.
Oh, don't worry. I will be super careful with this, and you sort of see her pinch the two sides of the jar very carefully, and she says, do you mind if I uncork it?
No, go ahead.
Ah, lovely. Thank you so much. And she reaches for her quill, and she very carefully dumps the silvery substance on top. And after a couple seconds, like the mimichrome twitches and shudders a bit, but very quickly it starts to run up the side of the quill, like the feather side, and all the feathers harden. And you see that in her hand, she sort of has this makeshift dagger. And she picks up a piece of paper, and she, like, cuts it down the middle, and it's like freaking a hot knife on butter. And she's like, oh my god, this is awesome.
That's very impressive. So you've used Mimichrome before?
Oh, no, never. And she shakes the contents back to the jar and says, but I've read so much about it. The caravan I used to be a part of, we actually went to the site where it's made. Oh my gosh, how did you get this?
Whoa, wait, where is it made? Where is this?
Well, oh, hold on a second. Hold on, Svein. And she pushes the jar back to you and says, I think it's fair if I can ask a question or two now.
Okay, yes, that's fair.
Yes! And she immediately grabs the pen and grabs the paper and grabs the inkwell. And she's like hunched over the paper and looks up at you and says, okay, so tell me, what is it like in the mountain range now? I mean, you guys have been there way longer than anybody else. Like how do you survive in there?
Well, you see, that's a little interesting. My family actually lives a bit separately from most of the dwarves.
Oh. And her posture sort of straightens a bit, and she looks a little disappointed. She says, so you don't actually live up north, then? Or you never did?
No, my ancestors did, but, no. Perhaps maybe when I was very young, maybe I used to live there, but no, you see, my community, we lived different mountain.
Huh. And you see her quickly scribble out something down on the paper. And I don't know if you want to see if you can figure out what she's writing.
Oh yeah, yep, I do.
Okay, cool. Make me perception.
Alright, we're going perception.
Or, I guess it could be investigation too. It's right there. You're just trying to read upside down. It's quite the
Yeah. Here we go. Ooh, alright, 23.
Oh yeah, you've been reading upside down all your life. In fact, when you were a tiny tot, you would flip yourself upside down on the couch and read books. So, and those books were still like right side up, so you totally got this. You see her scribble in "Dwarves no longer afraid of plague?" ? And she says, finally moving out of the mountains, settling down, ... ? And she looks up back at you and she says, okay, so where do you live now? Or, I guess, where did you live? Because I don't know if any dwarves would live out here in Soulglass.
Well, where I lived, it was very close to Smolderven. It was outside of there, but a mountain.
Whoa!
Just
Hold on.
right in the middle of the plains.
Back it up a second. You got all the way down to Smolderven?
Oh yes.
And you see her scribble on the paper, like underline the previous sentence she wrote, which was, dwarves no longer afraid of plague. And she looks up and she says, so, okay, so a mountain in the middle of the plain. Did you make your own mountain then?
I don't think, well, I don't know. I've never really thought about it, but I'm going to say probably not, but I suppose I cannot rule it out entirely.
She immediately ducks under her desk and pulls out this giant pieced together map, and she rolls it out on the table and she says, could you maybe mark it on my map? Like, maybe if I have time I can go see it. Oh my god.
Oh yes, yeah, right here. And Svein picks up a quill and marks for that mountain as, yes, right there.
Amazing. Wow, all the way down there. She's quiet for a second. She looks up and she says, I I guess it's your turn to get some information, huh? Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. So, this mimicrome, where is it made?
She gestures to you and she's like, well, do you have a map too? I can mark it on there.
Yes, I do have a map. And he pulls out the pop-up book because he hasn't got around to getting a new map yet.
I forgot you had that. Oh my god. Okay, so you pull out the pop-out book and like Hillary looks at it for a second. She's like, that's an interesting map.
It is. You see... Alright, I'm going to, let's see. I guess this would be deception, because
Yeah,
I'm going to
lie.
try and lie here.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So we'll... 7. Okay, so here's...
Here's the
Well,
book.
you see, I've found that when navigating by map, it helps to have something that shows the features of the land in 3 dimensions instead of 2.
Hillary laughs and she says, I think you just need to get a map, my man. It looks like you still decided the kids section at the library. I mean, no offense. It's a lovely map. Just a, couple of details missing. How are you gonna? Well, okay. Why don't you flip over to Gaia's Ocean, and
All right. Yes, I believe that's here somewhere. Here it is.
and you, I guess, flip to the part of the book where it's Gaia's Ocean, and you've got like these pop-up waves, and there's like fucking sea turtles and fish, and they all have smiley faces on them.
Yes. And Svein is not going to touch any of the pull tabs that like move things around. He's just going to leave those alone.
Okay. Hillary kind of shakes her head and she's biting her lip because she does not want to laugh at you. But wow, this is really funny. But she flips a couple pages and she says, oh, here we go, here it is. And she has stopped on a page called the Astral Puddle. And that is a body of water south of Gaia. So like if you were at Smolderven and you headed south, you would hit that beachfront. And she marks it on the map, and then she stops. She says, well, okay. See, technically it's not on the beach. It's the... What do you know about the Astral Puddle, Svein?
Well...
Let's
I'm gonna
find
roll
out.
for it. Yeah, let's find out. Here we go. I'm gonna... 7.
Okay, jack
Not
shit.
much. I don't know a whole lot about it.
Well, if you want to believe the more fairy tale folky stuff, it said that 50 or so years ago, a giant star fell out of the sky and crashed into Gaia. And as the rain fell and water collected, it eventually made the oceans that we use today. But here, and she points to the beach, is like, this is where supposedly the star fell. That, apparently, from what I have heard, is where the mimicrome comes from. I don't know how you got this, or whoever got it, because listen, like, this, if this star does exist, it's gotta be deep, like, deep underwater, so whoever got this knew what they were doing.
Ah, I see. That's very, very interesting.
She smiles, she says, well, it's not much, but it's something. As long as you got a lead, am I right?
Absolutely. Now I know I can head in the right direction.
So now, about that mountain, and she pulls out her papers again. And I just assume you literally spend the rest of the day just like weaving your tale and telling Hillary about your adventures. Last interlude. Lannon.
Oh, you're not even gonna roll for it?
No, well, I mean, you want me to roll for it?
Gotta roll that 1d1.
Yeah.
I mean, I got a 4. Technically, it would be Kennam again. But, no,
Oh,
Lannon.
I guess we're going back to me. Alright.
Yep.
Adventures of Kennam drunkenly stumbling home.
No. Alright, Lannon, you ready for this?
Yeah, so before we start, I realized something while you were going with Svein's little adventure.
Yeah.
Lannon doesn't speak Orcish,
Nope.
or whatever the hell Goliaths speak.
Nope.
Good question. What do Goliaths speak?
Kind of a mix of their own language and Orcish.
Okay.
Alright. Oh, this should be fun.
I just imagine, like, Lannon starts on his adventure and he does find the blacksmith and tries to talk to him, and it's like, oh shit, I can't understand a word you're saying.
He's speaking scat.
But yeah, so that is actually a legit question. Does Lannon realize he's not going to be able to understand anybody, or...
Yeah. Halfway between, like, the cart where we started off and the nearest blacksmith, he realizes, oh shit, I know nothing.
So how is Lannon going to remedy the situation?
I was thinking, like, using whatever I have left of Mimichrome to like make objects and try to like charades my way through the city.
So, like, literally that one thing Ear said not to do, you're going to do?
What did yours tell us not to do?
Oh, I don't know. Show off this super magical, rare alloy.
I don't believe it.
Whatever. But
Well,
no,
just because she told you not to do it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it.
yeah, and when have you started listening to Ears, I guess?
Svein, you're not here.
Plus, get off your Mimichrome.
That's fair. Okay, so, Lannon, what are you going to do?
Full form.
Go to the nearest blacksmith. Like, I can look for an anvil and a forge.
Yeah, you can. I was mostly referring to that whole language barrier thing. Or if we're actually going to flaunt around this super rare magical alloy.
No. I'm not gonna flaunt around. I'm gonna get to where the blacksmith is, and then flaunt it.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, so which direction did you take then? The path sort of in and out of the city, the rural district, or the trading district?
I would assume blacksmith would be in trading.
Trading and markets. Okay. So, you set off into the market district. Maybe you and Kennam were walking for a bit, and then Kennam went off in his own direction and just got lost in the sea of people.
I see a couple fireworks appear later.
You're like, oh, well, there he is. So you are sort of on your own in this very hustle-bustle market district, and especially for you, because you, little half-elf, have lived in a city, a castle, all your life. So even if you guys did have a market district, it definitely was not this crazy. Also, that clatter to the ground scared the hell out of me, too.
Sorry.
I don't know what it was, but it scared me. It scared my cat.
Your brother's messing around.
Stop messing around. Stop messing around. Lannon wants his adventure, damn it.
Lannon does want his adventure.
So yeah, your experience. Wait, am I echoing again?
Shouldn't be.
I was.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Okay. Your experience with shops has actually been physical buildings. Smolderven was definitely not a booths galore sort of deal. The only time you ever saw anything like this was during the Blazing Crown tournament. So pretty much this is like the Blazing Crown tournament, but on drugs.
Alright.
So you, why don't you roll me, what do I want you to roll me? What about, roll me perception, I guess, but roll me with disadvantage.
Shit. Alright.
Yeah. Poor little Lannon is not used to all this nonsense.
So the lowest I rolled was a 10, plus 1 is 11.
Okay. Regardless sort of how crowded this particular market district is, you do manage to work your way around, and soon enough, the ping of an anvil and hammer connecting together fills the air. And as you follow that noise, you find yourself sort of in this black. Hang on, I gotta say it without tongue-tying myself. Blacksmith strip. There we go. Where it's just a bunch of carts and huts and booths, and they are all dedicated to the armor and weapon making craft. But again, though, here's kind of the weird part, and you've noticed this as you've walked around the market district. A lot of what people sell seems to be made of glass, and that's no different here. You do see that a couple pieces have metal worked into it, but the majority of what is being sold is shaped out of glass.
Okay.
I mean, except for the armor, that would get a little weird. That's more like hide and leather worked in with metal. But a lot of like the weapons, shields, the things you hit people with and want to kill them with, all seems to be made out of glass.
All right.
So you find yourself in the blacksmithing strip.
Okay. Still trying to figure out what the fuck to do for this language barrier.
I'll say this too, like as you are walking around, you definitely get a lot of weird looks from people. And now that you're standing in this blacksmithing, that weird looking intensifies. You see a lot of the blacksmiths stop what they're doing. Like they may be in mid-swing and they look over at you and they're just staring. Because for all intended purposes, they have never seen anything like you, Lannon.
Anything like me meaning like half elf? Was it halfling?
Well, you're not a halfling, so likely the former. Or maybe it's because you're fabulously dressed. Who knows? Like you are literally decked out in metal, which is something else that seems to be a scarcity. So it really could be either or.
Okay. I'm gonna walk up to the nearest one and just ask, "Hi, do you speak common?"
And the orc who is working on his anvil, who has been staring at you for quite a bit, sort of tilts his head and you hear him speak sort of this guttural something or the other. He says something, but you don't know what it is.
Then I'm gonna run down through the other two languages I have. And just be like, Elvish?
Again, he looks kind of confused.
Dwarven?
He looks at you like you just spoke nonsense to him. Like now you're just making fun of him. And he actually starts to stand up.
Okay.
I assume you back up as he starts to stand up and like comes your way with a pair of hot tongs in his hands.
I'm just gonna put my hands up and say, or not say, just be like, oh, whoa. I didn't say anything negative.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa.
Whoa.
Whoa. And he roll me a persuasion.
Shit. Oh wait, no, I'm good at that.
Wait, I shouldn't curse at this.
Yeah. That is a natural 20.
Wow. Okay. So you sort of pull up your hands and you make the universal sign of, no, please don't kill me. The orc stops in his tracks and he kind of gives you a once over and he snorts and he goes to sit back down in his chair and he looks at you as if to say, what do you want then?
Alright. I'm gonna walk back over to like his table, I guess. Is it a table?
Yeah, he has a table. It's like a stall of sorts. It's a countertop. There we go. Something like that. Checkout center.
Then I'm going to take out my little jar of mimichrome and like with a puzzling expression on my face, as if the "do you know what this is" type face, and just point to it.
The orc looks at the jar. He kind of like squints in it because it's there's not much in there anymore. It's hard to see. And he looks back at you, and he again sort of says something in that gruff, guttural language of his. That could be orc, or maybe it's something else. Maybe he's just making fun of you now. You have no idea.
All right.
But he sort of understands what you're trying to ask, though, and he shakes his head as if to say, "Ooh."
Damn. All right.
And he does hold up a hand, though. Wait, why did you just roll?
Not other people making rolls.
So the ghost in that room is making a roll.
Yes.
Okay. So before you sort of leave his booth, he does hold up a hand. This is to say, wait, I have an idea. And he runs to the back of his... It's kind of like a tent hut hybrid. And he disappears for a bit, and he comes back, and he has an inkwell. He has a pen, and he has a piece of paper, and he puts it down on the table, and he starts to write very, very slowly something on the paper, and he pushes it to you and kind of taps it frantically.
I'm gonna assume he wants me to write down my questions.
And he nods.
Okay. So he wrote on the paper, right?
He did.
Do I know what it says?
Well, here's the thing. To a normal person, no, because it kind of looks like words, but it's so terribly written that it also just looks like a bunch of scribbles. However, you did mention to me that your mother also has terrible handwriting, so you kind of become a savant when it comes to bad handwriting. And you kind of managed to piece together the words name, Cyrus, what yours.
Alright, in the same terrible handwriting that I learned from my mother, I'm gonna write Lannon.
And the orc looks at it, and he nods, he pulls the paper back, and again, it takes him a very long time to write out his sentences, and you see him pause a couple times, and crack his knuckles, furrow his brow.
Understandable.
Yeah, like
I'd let him go along with it.
okay. And eventually, after maybe a minute or two, he pushes it back and says, what's in jar, too small.
Oh, so he couldn't see it. Okay. I'm going to write down, special fluid molds to weapons.
And he pulls it back and he reads it. And you watch him throw back his head and laugh and shake his head, and he starts writing again. He pushes it back to you, and it must be some sort of, like, he must have a different way of saying it, but it says something to the extent of, like, you're fucking with me. But it's written out, like, really weird, like, there's something about a giraffe and stripes, and it's a weird idiom, but you could kind of piece together that he doesn't believe you.
Alright, I'm going to take out the, old battle axe handle.
May his soul rest in peace.
Yeah. And just will Mimicrome to make the axe.
Okay. Very easily it slips out of the bottle and quickly pieces the two pieces of wood together, links up the edge, and curves out to make the axe. And you watch this orc almost like completely fall on his ass. Like he stumbles back so far and so fast. And he, well, it's almost reflexively, like he reaches for the tongs again, as if he's gonna like lap you with them.
Alright.
And it's just sort of a minute of you two staring at each other with weapons in hands, and kind of realizes like, oh, okay. And he puts the tongs back down, realizing you're not actually going to attack him. And he sits down and he holds out a hand and points to the weapon.
Alright. I hand him the Mimicrome axe.
Okay. And he takes it in his hands, and he's sort of like running his calloused fingers across the metal, and he kind of like turns it on his side. He kind of even like whips it through the air at one point just to see if it feels the same as a normal axe, and you see him nod in improvement, and he pulls it back. And then you watch him flip the blade over, and he runs his thumb down the blade, and this like thick stream of blood runs down his hand, and he nods, and he hands the blade back to you as he reaches under, grabs some linens, and starts wrapping up his thumb.
All right. So was he just like testing the Mimichrome weapon?
And safe bet.
Okay. I'm going to take the paper and quill and write down. Do you know what it is?
He looks over the paper for a minute, and he frowns. He starts tapping his fingers on the table like he's trying to remember something. And he pulls the paper back. And instead of writing, this time he draws what looks like a star. And he draws a couple of squiggles like next to the star. And he starts to draw like really crude interpretations of what looks like fish. And he pushes it back to you. And he sort of shrugs.
Okay. I'm just gonna make a hand gesture like, okay, so a pod and a star.
Awesome, thanks, dude. And
Right.
he pulls the paper back and writes again on it, and he pushes it back, and he says, "Can help with other things?"
Yeah. I'm gonna look around to see if there's like a bitchin' shield.
Okay. Like, are we talking a small shield, a tall shield, a square shield? Also in
Did
game
you say
terms?
rare shield?
No, a square shield, but it could be a rare shield. Also in game terms, what kind of shield are you looking for?
Just your regular shield. Like, I don't know how to describe it.
Well, because there's like
It's
tower shields and stuff, and I assume that's not what
oh
you're
no,
looking for.
God no, not tower shields.
Okay.
Lannon cannot wield a tower shield.
Okay, so basically something he can use to block shit with, but still use his other weapons with.
Yeah.
Okay, so you look around, and you do see a couple size and shaped shields. Again, though, they all seem to be mostly made out of glass with a couple of iron and metal warped into it. And actually, as you look more and more at these shields, the parts that aren't glass, like the metal parts, look weirdly familiar.
Like.
Well, you're gonna have to pull one down and take a closer look.
All right. I'm gonna do that.
He's gonna reach up and grab one of his shields.
No, I'm gonna point at it, give him an inquisitive look, and make a gesture like, "May I?"
And he turns around, he grabs one of the shields and holds it out to you.
All right, I would take it.
Okay, and surprising, or maybe no surprise to you, this is a fairly light shield, very easy to sort of maneuver around with. It's got very pretty etchings like all around the side of it, and you look at this metal working, and it looks a whole lot like the interior of Florence.
Really?
Yes, it does.
Huh. That's pretty cool. All right. I don't know what to do with this information.
Your orc blacksmith buddy takes the paper. He writes something down. He pushes it back to you, and he says, "Want to use?"
I give 2 thumbs up.
And he nods, and he pulls the paper back, writes something down, pushes it forward, and says, "What will give?"
Alright. Lannon instinctively goes into his pocket and pulls out like 30 gold.
And you see the blacksmith kind of shake his head and wave his hands back and forth.
Is Alright, so he doesn't want money.
He pulls the paper back over and writes something on it, pushes it back, and it says something value.
Oh.
And he like thinks about that for a second, and he pulls it back and he writes and he says something useful.
Oh, something useful. I don't think I have anything useful.
What do you have in your inventory right now?
Let's see, I have gold, crowbar, hammer, pittance, torches, tinderbox. I could give him food.
Why do I just imagine Lannon just picks up his bag and turns it upside down and dumps all the contents on the fucking table?
I mean, yeah, like...
Okay, so you just do that. All your inventory is out of the table.
Except for the journal. Except for the journal.
Okay.
And except for the Shiva fire.
Oh yeah, you do have a little bit of that, don't you?
Those are mine.
Okay, so you look. I would say you like look at him as if to say, "Take your pick." And he kind of starts sifting through the pile, trying to find something of value. And he like picks up some of the unlit torches that you use and pushes those aside. And he picks up the I guess the food rations you somehow still have, and shakes his head and pushes it aside. And he keeps shifting through, and then he stops at the deck of cards you have. And he picks these up, and he looks at you kind of confused, and he shakes the cards, and he points to them.
Wait. My dagger deck or my cheating deck?
Good question. Do they look the same?
No.
Okay, I'll make
What?
I'll make a roll.
The casing of the dagger deck literally has a dagger on it.
Okay.
And the casing of the cheating deck has like a couple gold coins.
Okay, he picked up the one that has a dagger on the front then. So he picked up your dagger deck and shook it and kind of pointed at it with a confused look on his face.
Alright. I'm gonna take the box from his hands and take a card out and throw it at like wood post or something.
Okay.
Closest target, I guess.
The closest target. Okay. And he watches as this seemingly what he thought was a paper card pinks into the wood and sticks, even like digs into it. And his eyes widen and he looks at the deck and he kind of holds out a hand and points to the shield and holds out his hand.
So he wants to trade me my dagger deck for a shield.
That seems to be the case. He kind of sees. I was like, he kind of sees that you hesitate, and he taps his chin for a second, and he pulls the paper back, and he writes something on. He doesn't write. He starts drawing again, and he draws the shape of the shield, and he draws like a very crude stick figure of you. And he draws a picture of the sun, and like some dots going down from the sun to the shield. And then he realizes he's out of space in the paper, and he flips the paper over and draws the whole scene again. Only this time, he like draws some dots around the shield, and then he draws you again, and there's these hearts all around your body.
So what, he wants to like enchant my shield or something?
He shakes his head, and he writes down, and he pushes it over, and he says, "Already magic."
Oh, it's a magic shield.
And he nods.
Magic shield for dagger deck.
And now that you know it's a magic shield, if you want to make a roll to try and figure out what he's trying to tell you it does, you can.
Yeah.
Do it.
Would I have to put perception or something into it?
It'd probably be just Arcana, because now you know it's magic, so you just have to sort of piece together what this could be.
Okay, so it's a regular d20. That is a 15.
Okay, so you sort of managed to piece together between his crude drawings and your knowledge of the Arcana. Thank you, Queen Mother for those lessons of the past.
Praise be.
Thank you, Nofira. That what he's telling you is that if you leave the shield out in sunlight, or you let it absorb enough sunlight, you can then sort of reshape that light into healing energy. Now, what specifically healing energy that means, you're not 100% sure. You probably have to figure that out once you get into combat and use it.
All right. The dagger deck is important to me, but that magic shield is very intriguing. Yeah, I'll take the shield. I nod and hand him the deck.
Okay, he snatches up the dagger deck very excitedly and sticks it in his apron pocket and gives you a thumbs up with the shield, and he looks super stoked. He's like really happy to have this dagger deck.
Alright. And I'm going to take that one card out of the wall and just sneak it into my pocket.
Okay, he doesn't seem to be upset by this.
Alright, cool. So now I have a new shield, and I'm gonna erase that dagger deck.
Goodbye, dagger deck. You have served your purpose well.
I'll just make a new set.
Yeah. How hard can it be?